Great job of staying, keeping her back against the fence. Oh. Ooh, with a club and a right hand.
Think women can't knock out their opponent. From flying knees that defy gravity. Spinning strikes that look like something.
The drama surrounding the coldest knockouts in women's MMA history begins long before any fist lands, long before any shin cracks against a jaw or a knee plunges mercilessly into a liver. It begins in that strange electric space where anticipation meets chaos, where fighters walk toward the cage knowing that one clean strike can rewrite their careers, their legacies, even the direction of the sport itself. For years, skeptics dismissed women's MMA as something softer, something technical but lacking the sheer violence of the men. But those skeptics had clearly never watched the highlight reels that now exist like graveyards of brutally ended fights. They had never witnessed the flying knees that seemed to belong in video games, or the spinning back fists that collapse champions, or the head kicks so vicious they silence arenas before the crowd even understand what happened. The truth is simple. Women hit just as hard, sometimes harder, and nothing proves that more than the coldest, most unforgettable knockouts ever etched into the sport. The new era of destruction arrived wearing a name that started echoing through the MMA world like a warning siren: Dakota Ditcheva. With a record as clean as glass and a finishing rate that borders on supernatural, she didn't just enter the scene, she detonated into it. Standing in the cage on June 13th, 2024, across from Chelsea Hackett, she didn't look like the next Ronda Rousey. She looked like the final boss Ronda would have had to beat. Hackett was no pushover. Precise, determined, seasoned at attacking and countering attacks. But none of that mattered when Deeva pressed forward. She began with a low leg kick to disrupt the base, then let her right hand sail forward like a guided missile. Hackett backed up, ready to reset, but Deeva was far from finished. In a heartbeat, she lifted a knee straight into Hackett's liver with such surgical cruelty that Hackett's body folded against itself, as if her insides had simply shut off the power. The referee rushed in as Hackett tried to retreat, but her body refused to respond. The finishing flurry that followed was the sound of a dream collapsing. Deeva didn't just win. She made a statement. She made the playoffs. And she made the world wonder whether a new queen had arrived to rule them all. But that wasn't even close to the final chapter. On November 29th, 2024, standing in the PFL Women's Flyweight Championship final, Dakota Ditcheva met Taylor Santos, a fighter who nearly dethroned the legendary Valentina Shevchenko and who entered the cage with the calm confidence of someone who believed she'd seen everything the sport could offer. She hadn't, not even close. From the opening exchange, Santos attempted to impose pressure, but Deeva's counters were razor-sharp. She snapped her right hand through the guard, forcing Santos to reconsider her range. Deeva framed up, pivoted, and then hurled a kick that smacked against Santos' face with a sound that made the commentary table gasp. Santos tried to clinch for safety, but that was the worst idea she could have chosen. Inside the clinch, Deeva transformed into a metronome of violence, hammering elbows down on his Santos skull like she was chiseling a waystone. Then came the knees, crisp, merciless, rising perfectly through the center line. Santos wilted under the pressure. Her guard collapsed. Her balance dissolved. The referee didn't stop the fight because Deeva was overwhelming her. He stopped it because Santos had no defense left to give. That night, Dakota Ditcheva walked out as the undisputed flyweight queen, and women's MMA walked into a new era defined by her violence. But if Deeva represents the future, then Jessica Andrade represents one of the most terrifying forces from the present. Andrade doesn't punch so much as detonate. Karolina Kowalkiewicz learned that harsh lesson in a way that would echo through her career forever. Kowalkiewicz, known for her sharp Muay Thai and polished technique, entered the cage planning to keep Andrade at bay with angles and clean combinations. But Andrade doesn't care about plans. Andrade cares about pressure, about closing distance like a runaway freight train. And when she stepped inside and unleashed that right hand, the famed nuclear overhand that moves like a weapon powered by spite, Kalkiewicz' body reacted before her brain could. Her legs gave out instantly. Her face smashed into the canvas. She didn't fall in a spiral. She didn't collapse backward or sideways. She dropped forward, face first, like someone had unplugged her from reality. It was one of the purest, coldest knockouts in the entire history of the division. Years before that, Veronica Ruthenhosler etched her name into the record books with a moment so fast that if you blinked, you didn't just miss the knockout. You missed the entire fight. 5 seconds. That's all it took for her to charge forward, fire off a lightning-fast 1-2 combination, and flatten Ashley Evans Smith like a sandbag tossed from a rooftop. One moment, Evans Smith stood tall, guarded, prepared for a long night. The next, she was being peeled off the canvas, wondering what truck had hit her. Ruthenhosler's knockout wasn't just fast, it was violent in the kind of way that becomes urban legend. But head kicks, those are the crown jewels of brutality. And no one wielded them with more destructive artistry than Sabina Mazo. When she faced Jamie Thornton, the round was nearly finished. Only 10 seconds remained according to the clock. But Mazo fights as though clocks do not exist. She faked low, stepped in, and then launched a head kick so fierce it seemed to bend space around her. Thornton's body reacted instantly, shutting down even before it hit the ground. The referee stepped in, but the damage was done. Thornton wasn't just knocked out, she was erased. And, as if one reality-bending knockout wasn't enough, Mazo delivered another masterpiece against Lindsey Williams for the LFA Women's Flyweight Championship. Williams crouched defensively, thinking she could disrupt Mazo's balance. Instead, she bent directly into the path of Mazo's shin. When that kick landed, the sound echoed through the arena like someone had slammed a wooden bat against a wall. Williams collapsed and didn't get up for a long time, and everyone watching knew they had just witnessed the birth of an elite head kick specialist. But the most famous head kick in modern women's MMA didn't belong to Mazo. It belonged to the quiet warrior whose calm demeanor hides one of the most dangerous arsenals in combat sports. Rose Namajunas delivered a kick so perfect, so clean, so unexpected that it stunned not just the crowd, not just Jean Whaley, not just the commentators, but the entire MMA world. On April 24, 2021, Rose stepped in, feinted just enough to make Zhang lower her guard, then flicked her left leg upward like she was snapping a whip. The shin collided flush with Zhang's jaw. Zhang crashed backward, confused, protesting the stoppage even as her body refused to cooperate. It was art. Violent, shocking, beautiful art. And it turned Rose into a 2-time champion in a single, unforgettable instant. Champion in a single, unforgettable instant. Yet fate has a way of balancing the scales. Just as Rose handed out destruction, she would later receive it. In her fight with Jessica Andrade, she showcased crisp boxing, movement like shadow, and combinations that sliced through the air. She was winning, dominating, and then Andrade caught her. Not with a punch, not with a kick, but with raw, barbaric strength. Andrade lifted Rose off her feet, hoisted her high, and slammed her into the canvas with such force that the entire cage seemed to rattle. For a moment, fans wondered whether the slam had ended more than just the fight. Andrade climbed off her fallen opponent with the look of someone who had unleashed an ancient, primal technique. It remains one of the most violent slams in MMA history, a chilling reminder that knockouts don't always come from strikes. Some knockouts come from angles no one expects. Irene Aldana demonstrated that when she threw an upkick that didn't target the chin or temple, but the liver, a nearly unheard-of technique. Macy Chiasson stood over her, applying pressure, thinking she was safe. But Aldana fired her heel upward with the precision of a surgeon. It sank into Chiasson's liver like a spear. Chiasson's body is shut down immediately. She collapsed sideways, curling in on herself, as Aldana seized the most unlikely victory of her career. It was a knockout that forced fighters everywhere to rethink what dangerous positions actually meant. But when we talk about creative violence, one moment stands above nearly all others. Zhang Weili's spinning back fist against Joanna Jedrzejczyk. Their first fight was a war, a legendary 5-round battle etched into the soul of MMA. Their rematch, however, ended with one perfect, merciless strike. After trading bombs, Zhang timed Joanna's forward movement, pivoted, and unleashed a spinning back fist that collided with the side of Joanna's head like a hammer, striking metal. Joanna dropped instantly, her face twisted in a mixture of shock and heartbreak as the fight was waved off. It was the knockout equivalent of dropping a microphone. Dramatic, emphatic final. And then there is Valentina Shevchenko, the queen of precision, the embodiment of calm destruction. Against Jessica, she disguised her setup like an illusionist. She jabbed low, drew eyes, guard downward, then whipped her left leg upward in a motion so fluid it looked rehearsed 1,000 times. The kick struck I's head with a catastrophic thud, and I collapsed backward, frozen in place before her body hit the canvas. It was a masterclass in patience, deception, and execution, Shevchenko in her purest form. Outside the UFC, knockout artistry flourishes as well. At SCS 18, Jin Yufrei delivered a straight left so clean it looked like it had been drawn with a ruler. Darla Harris stepped into range for a split second, and that was all it took. Frey's shot cut through the air, landed flush, and dropped Harris immediately. No follow-up necessary. No confusion. Just the cold clarity of a perfect knockout. Frida Vastamaki delivered one of the most shocking head kicks ever seen. Not just because of how hard it landed, but because she threw it while wearing shin guards. In a bout against Emanuela Siley, she lifted her right leg and fired off a high kick that Siley never saw coming. The impact sent Siley crashing to the ground, and for a moment the entire arena went silent, stunned that a kick that devastating could land even in a padded fight. It was a testament to technique over force, and it left Siley staring at the ceiling in disbelief. Before she shocked the world in the UFC, Holly Holm was already a destroyer. In 2013, facing Nikki Knudsen, Holm dismantled her with bodywork that felt almost clinical. She mixed her boxing with precision kicks, targeting the midsection, ribs, and head with methodical cruelty. Knudsen tried to retreat, but Holm never let her breathe. When Holm unleashed the final barrage, Knudsen's body slumped, unable to withstand another second. The referee stepped in, saving her from further damage, while Holm stood poised, calm, and deadly. The same poise she would carry into her future championship run. And of course, there is Molly Meatball McCann, unpredictable, wild, fueled entirely by heart. Against Luana Carolina, she had been pushed, tested, nearly overwhelmed. But in the third round, she gathered every ounce of desperation and spun. Her elbow connected with a crack that echoed through the O2 arena. Carolina collapsed instantly, and the arena erupted as McCann sprinted across the cage in celebration. It was a moment that captured everything that makes MMA unpredictable. No fight is over until it's over, and no fighter is finished until the clock runs out. But none of these knockouts, no matter how brutal or clean, compare in historical impact to the head kick that changed the entire trajectory of the sport. At UFC 193, Ronda Rousey walked into the cage as the most dominant force women's MMA had ever seen. She was undefeated, unstoppable, untouchable. Holly Holm wasn't supposed to win. She was supposed to challenge the champion, not dethrone her. But as the fight played out, it became clear that this was not a contest of hype versus talent. Holm's footwork, her boxing, her angles, everything she executed dismantled Ronda's forward pressure. And then came the moment that froze time. Holm pivoted, dipped to the side, and unloaded a head kick that crashed against Ronda's jaw. Ronda fell face first, unconscious before she hit the ground. Holm dove in to finish the fight, but it was already over. The champion was dethroned. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Holly Holm stood as the new bantamweight queen. It remains one of the most iconic moments in MMA history. Not just a knockout, but a seismic event that changed the sport forever. So now the question becomes yours to answer. Of all the carnage, all the artistry, all the physics-defying moments of pure violence, which knockout stands above the rest? Which moment left you replaying it over and over, unable to believe what you had seen? Let me know your pick in the comments. And if you love diving into the wildest moments in fight history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. There are countless more stories waiting. Stories of triumph, heartbreak, chaos, and the jaw-dropping knockouts that define MMA. Stay tuned because the next highlight might be even colder than the last.